What did you want all of your students to be able to know, understand, and be able to do?
I think on this lesson what I was looking for was on the math ELR number 2, on being able to define and solve a problem. And we've been using the 5-step method of solving problems, but it's always good to have different strategies for solving problems and define problems. So this was another way for the kids to look at a problem and look at what information is actually in the problem and what information can they use. Is there missing information? And then being able to think about what they know about math already, access that prior knowledge, and which ones of those things are they going to use to solve it, and then relate that to an equation of some sort.
Well, did they reach that objective?
I think they did. I think they were a little confused by it, and part of that was because of the fact that my ditto didn't come out quite like I wanted it to. But I think that there was some really good conversations going on each section of it as they were going through, and there were some kids that were leads who are normally not leads in the different groups. I was real excited to see that. They were saying, well, what about this? And they were really coming up with some good ideas on their own. I really like seeing that.
Other than the conversations, were there any other evidence that would show that they were engaged?
I could tell by going around and seeing which ones had been checked, and some kids didn't have anything checked, so those were the groups that I stopped by to help, because I noticed they didn't have any checking going on at all, or there was 2 out of the 4 that didn't. So I knew that I needed to stop by those because they were obviously not understanding what was going on yet. And I felt that they understood the problem pretty well by the end, and knew what kind of information they needed and didn't need in order to solve the problem. And they also figured out that they knew quite a bit themselves already. And I like that when they say, oh, yeah, I can use that. I know what to do with that.
Okay. What did you do to help all of the students in the classroom be able to learn as a teacher?
I think by discussing things together, having them work in a group. I had them do some things independently because I wanted to get their thinking going by themselves first, and then sharing with either a partner or the whole group, and then coming back together as a whole class. So they had 3 different opportunities of learning to go through, either independently or a small group or large group. And you could tell by what they were putting on their papers to make sure that they were doing something and were learning something. And also just by going by and individually talking to kids and to groups. It's another way to make sure that they're understanding what they're doing.
What would you do, again, knowing what you know now?
I kind of like this way of doing it. It was different than what I've looked at before, and I think I might make up another couple of different problems like this just to see if they could go through and get more used to this idea, and really helps them analyze the problem better. So it's another way to get them to know exactly what they're being asked to do and to figure out how they're going to solve it, because that's always the biggest problem. They always know what the question is, but how to solve it, that's different. And I think this might help them figure out a way they're going to solve it.
Would you do anything differently?
I would have the ditto changed so that the blanks were across from each other, and we would have flowers instead of glowers, or glowers it must be, because it didn't come up on the spell check. I think other than that, I thought they were engaged. I liked the conversations that were going on, and I probably wouldn't change too much more.
Is there anything else you want to share before I give my comments?
Nope, go ahead.
No? For me, it was really interesting because, like I've mentioned with Marilyn and I've told some of the other teachers, having been another 4th grade teacher in this building, it's nice for me to go in and see where the other students at the same grade level are at. I get many of these students through Walk to Read. I've had them in Wassel Camp. I get them in 21st Century. So it's nice to see how they interact in different situations. And it's also nice to compare where my students are at in the same curriculum. So it was a really good opportunity, I think, for me to learn from the students in the classroom. I saw a lot of good talk, a lot of good vocabulary, and I noticed that you did make a specific point at the end to come back and do a wrap-up. And I know that's something you've been trying very hard to do. And I think you did a really good job. You also pulled in, too, when you're doing the multiplying of the final total for the fence price, you also pulled in, could we estimate? And I know that that's something the kids in her room and the kids in my room have had a really hard time choosing when's a good time to estimate, when's it appropriate, how can it help you in math. And I really like how you tied that in with this lesson. I thought that was really good, too.
Thank you.